Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about owners today, and this is a result of me reading an article on The Athletic on Eugene Melnick. Very well written, very well researched, very balanced article that I thought presented a pretty good picture of how it would have been to work for the Ottawa Senators organization when Eugene was running the team, and giving an idea of where the Senators are at in the community and what road forward the organization has to take from here. And I thought it showed that he was a man of great passion, that he was a man that had some issues there as well, but who wouldn't? I think with the amount of money that people have that are owners in pro sports, I'm not surprised there's some quirks and idiosyncrasies. I remember a Brett Butt joke that I thought was funny. I think he said that if his bank account was over $1,000, he started getting kind of squirrely and kind of ornery with people, something along those lines. I know he would say it a lot better, but there's definitely something to that, and the idea that for somebody who's self-made, which Eugene was, the idea that it could all go away could be really tough. It could absolutely be really tough. The idea that I have this, I built this could disappear. So that might have been part of it. Again, it's a good article. I recommend it. Honestly, The Athletic is pretty good when it comes to its reporting. Some excellent people employed there, and there were numerous people that signed off on that article. Like there were, I think, 3 different people who had their name in the header, and there's other people too involved in that article being researched and put together and then put online. But I wanted to talk about good owner versus bad owner, because if you cheer for a team, you're going to state whether you think you have a good owner or a bad owner. And I know, being in the Vancouver market, sometimes people love Francesco Aquilini, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have these wild ideas for what might be going on. Some of it might be true, some of it isn't. I can say, just from things that I've heard, Aquilini's a very passionate owner. I think from everything I've heard, he's a nice guy. And again, this is from everything I've heard. And so I don't think that he's necessarily a bad owner, but I've definitely seen complaints online when it comes to Aquilini and things that get done. So whatever market you're in, people will have opinions on the owner. Now, I thought about wearing Detroit because Mr. Ilitch was pretty universally beloved as an owner. And that leads into the number one point I want to make here: money. A good owner has to have a lot of money. And this is just how it works. Before Alex Mariuello takes over in Arizona, it was Andrew Barraway that was the owner, right? One thing that kept coming up was that Barraway didn't have the kind of deep pockets that you would want for an NHL owner to have, whereas Mariuello did. And Mariuello had a business plan and still does. And so while the Coyotes may lose money, his other business ventures would bring money in, and having his foot in the door with the Coyotes may allow him to make more money through gambling and other things as well, right? And of course, they're trying to get the new building put up and all of that fun stuff. And so you can argue about who is a good and who is bad, and you can have both. You can have an owner that's good at one side and bad at the other, but you have to have money. No matter what else is on this board that you might be shaky in, if you as an owner don't have money, like, so if I came out tomorrow and I said, hey, so I bought the Vancouver Canucks, I offered them $2,000. They took it. I'm a Canucks owner. The team's in trouble. Just saying, the team would be in deep trouble. I do not have the money to deal with that. And I wouldn't have the expertise, the experience, or any of that. And so, yeah, a good owner has to have a pretty deep bank account, which also means you'll notice they don't have to be nice, because they don't. I've seen comments about hockey players, coaches, owners. The guy's a jerk. The guy's a jerk. This guy's a jerk. Because you don't have to pass a personality test to become a National Hockey League player. You don't have to pass a personality test to become an NHL owner. You just got to be good to be a hockey player, and you got to have money to be an owner. So the rest of it, it's nice if they're great people, but sometimes they're not, and that's okay too. Teamwork. So the teamwork side of it is really the idea that, and some owners do this better than others, and I had some bad jobs over the 20 plus years before I became a YouTuber, which is why I make videos every day, because there's a part of me that gets terrified of, hey, you don't ever want to go back to that life, so you better work your ass off. So, which is why I put myself to work every day. Every day I get up, like, I got to go to work. So the teamwork aspect is good. A good owner will make you feel like you're part of something and that you matter. And I've had owners too that'll say whatever. There was one instance where an owner came in and gave a very impassioned plea to his staff. Really need you to work some overtime. We're backed up. We really need you guys to work some overtime. I need everybody to pitch in. And it's going to be, I know it's tough. I know you guys aren't going to get to spend much time with your families, but we got to pitch in. And so we all went, all right, fine, we understand. This needs to get done. The staff was cool with it. But it was maybe a day or two later, we found out he flew to Hawaii. He went to Hawaii right after that, and he went for a vacation for a couple of weeks. And so we were kind of ticked. We were like, well, what happened to the family thing? Why weren't we invited on the family holiday? So that's the kind of thing that an owner can do where he says one thing and then you hear something he did and go, oh, I see how it is. So that really ate away at that idea that we're a team, and and that anytime that I've had an owner say, remember, we're a family, that's where you can almost at that point get up and run for the door, because that means things are going to get bad. So bad. Having an owner that genuinely makes you feel like you're part of something, whether you're, and in the NHL's case, it'll be for the players, for the coaches, for the trainers, for people who come in and do work in the building, for custodial, they need to feel like they're part of something. And I think that's important too, because I think people will do a better job when they're working for somebody who makes them feel valued. Now, it's not about kissing up to people or anything. It's about actually feeling like if I do a good job, the owner could notice, and maybe I get a bit of a bump in my pay. Maybe there's some incentive. So if I get this done a little bit sooner, I get a little bit of a bonus on that, and then I get to go home. This kind of thing, right? So it's important to have an owner that understands this. Sometimes you get an owner that just their concern is, and it comes back to the money part, I don't want to pay for that. Or I'm only giving them this much an hour because look at their job. They're not worth it. And again, depending on which market you're in, you may have an owner that makes everybody feel great. You may have an owner that makes it feel like if you work in the team store, you'd better, keep your mouth shut, and you better not step out of line, because it's easy to replace you. There's nothing like the feeling, whether it's a boss, could be an owner, could just be a boss in general, making it feel like you're very highly replaceable. And I've always honestly understood how replaceable I've been in jobs that I've had. So, but at the same time, you need an owner that makes it feel like you're not worthless to them, that you're not just disposable. Maturity. So now with an owner, and again, you're looking at money. You're looking at guys who maybe they inherited that wealth. Maybe in the case of, as I said with Melnick, self-made, right? So maturity is hard to measure. And sometimes it shows with owners, that lack of maturity, if they're flipping out after their team loses. Maybe they're sore winners as well. So maybe they're sore losers and they're sore winners. But there are some good owners that have a very good level of maturity and an understanding of how things work, and they treat people well. So when they're having a bad day, and this comes back to the teamwork part too, when you're having a bad day, you don't just come in and yell and scream at everybody. I've had that boss. It's terrible. It's terrible when somebody comes in, dude's on a warpath. Keep your head down. Don't speak. Just ignore it. Just let him come through. Say whatever he's going to say. Just nod and agree, and then they'll leave. It's bad because it creates a tense work environment. It creates a situation where you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know when you see them coming, what's going to happen. There was an owner, one of the businesses I worked for, that's coming through, and I just said, "Hey, how's it going?" And he just looks at me, and I have people going, "You just spoke to the owner," and I'm like, "Yeah, what? I know. You're not supposed to talk to him. Why? Why can't I talk to him? It's just a guy. Yeah, I mean, he signs my paychecks, but you can still talk to him, can't you?" So some owners you can't. Some owners you can't. You can't speak to them. You're not important enough. And I think that does show an issue with maturity. I could say humility as well. The understanding that, I'm the owner and I run all this, but these are human beings, and if I'm having a bad day, they might be having a bad day too, this kind of thing, which again comes back to the teamwork. So these two probably go together really well and lead into this. And this is important, and I think this one comes down to, with sports owners especially, trust. As an owner, trust the general manager you've hired. Trust the general manager. And if you don't trust the general manager, you probably need to replace him. Don't be micromanaging the team. Don't be micromanaging the decisions made with who gets traded and who doesn't. I mean, you have a budget. So if I have a budget for my team and I've got a player that says I want 10 million a year, the GM comes to me and says, yeah, Jimmy wants 10 million a year. I might say Jimmy's not worth 10 million a year. And I might have a GM that disagrees with me. You might have a GM that says, actually, we think he is. And then sit down with your staff and go over it. Say, all right, this is a big financial decision. Bring in your statisticians, the guys who look at all the advanced stats. Bring in whoever you need in the organization and have that discussion of, okay, this player wants this much money. What do you think? And have an owner that says, all right, if my staff agrees he's worth this amount of money, I'll go ahead and I'll sign off on it. With the caveat being, if it's wrong, if the staff gets it completely wrong and that player is absolutely not worth that amount of money and there's problems, that's where then the GM's job is in trouble, and maybe some of the other guys on the staff too, especially if there were warning signs that really they weren't worth that kind of thing, right? But you need to trust your staff, and you need to trust that they're doing the right things, and you can't be eroding the GM's ability to lead. I think some of the smartest owners we never hear from. They just publicly, we don't hear from them. They don't say much of anything. They let the GM go out. You might have a team president that goes out and talks, and you leave it at that. And you're spending the money. You make sure people know that they're part of a team and that this is a joint effort to make this organization as great as it can be. You have the maturity to stay out of some of the drama that owners can get going, and you trust that the people you've hired to do the job can do the job. Because again, there's nothing more frustrating than being shown, hey, we trust you to do this job. And then you're doing that job. And I've had like assembly line jobs most of the time. And so you'd be trained on a job. You're like, all right, I got this. Cool, I got it. And then every 10 minutes, you notice somebody staring at you and you're like, okay, I'm doing this right. I know, but if you keep watching me, I might screw up. So can you go? And there were times where I would turn around and go, is there something else you can do? Or, because again, are they going to fire you for that? I mean, if they're going to fire you for that, they're going to find a reason to fire you. So trust is really important. And again, I think that leads to people doing a better job. When the owner comes through and says, hey, good job. And, or somebody comes through and teaches you something, and then they leave you to do that and they trust you to do it. One thing that we've seen over the last couple of years now is something that we always kind of knew. People can work from home. But also, owners may take a look at that and go, they're going to abuse that. They're not actually going to do their job. Even if there's studies showing people working from home might actually work more hours and they might be more productive. The idea that you can't watch them work and you can't manage their time can drive some owners insane. Can drive some bosses crazy. And I think the other side of it too, it may expose that your organization's bloated and you could get rid of some people because these guys can work from home. So there may be some in management that go, oh, you've got to bring them back into the office because if you don't, my job is pointless and you can get rid of me. So yeah, trust is important. Being able to take feedback, having the maturity for that feedback is important too. So I do like how these all work together. And then from a sports perspective, loyalty. Norm Green. And there you go. Minnesota fans just shook their fists at the screen, and there might be a phone or two that just got smashed. But the idea that an owner needs to show loyalty. So I'll come back to Eugene Melnyk. Melnyk, there were always discussions of Melnyk and his idiosyncrasies and his personality quirks and all this. But what really got people talking and getting mad was when he suggested, if I'm not making enough money in Ottawa and it looks good somewhere else, maybe I go somewhere else. I'm never selling the team. That will never happen. And when he said that, and no matter what he meant in that moment, people were not happy. People were upset with him in that moment as well. So that's where the loyalty part comes in. You can lose a fan base. If you have an owner that comes out and says, I don't know. We're not filling the building enough. I think we're going to have to move. You're going to sell less tickets. That's going to actually hurt your ticket sales. You have to show loyalty to the market, to the fans. Loyalty to your staff is important as well. Coaches, GMs, and players. Players talk. I've talked about this too. Players, they can gossip. They can gossip with the best of them. And so if you have an organization that shows no loyalty and just boots you out the door, players can say, yeah, I enjoyed my time there, but there's just no sense of loyalty. So, and it's tough because if you're an owner, the pressure can be tremendous to make your investments work. And so if you feel like your team isn't working, you may say, all right, well, this isn't working, so we need to just get this all fixed. And these players need to go. And again, you may not be arguing from a point where you may know entirely what you're talking about, and it might be out of anger, frustration, and so showing loyalty. And again, that comes down under that trust as well. The loyalty to the people that work for you is really important and can be a defining factor between a good owner and a bad owner. Because again, there is no personality test for owners or for players. There have been times where people say, why don't you talk about this player being a jerk? Because everybody knows that player's a jerk and it doesn't matter. If he scores the game-winning goal in Stanley Cup and if he gets the Game 7 Stanley Cup winning goal, nobody's going to care the guy's a jerk. It's not going to be like on instant replay, we noticed the jerk tipped that puck in, so that doesn't count. Play on. Nobody cares. So it's a balancing act, and that means too that there's owners who've had the Stanley Cup that probably jerks. Absolutely, probably, and they might be cheap, and they might not be very nice to their staff. So then that becomes a question too. Notice I don't have team success on the board because that doesn't necessarily mean anything about ownership. Sometimes that you can get that success despite having an owner who micromanages, who does all that stuff, and you might end up having a team that's just awful on the ice, even though the owner's a great guy. So that being said, what to you makes for a good owner or a bad owner? And what kind of an effect does that have on how you cheer for a team? So if you're a Wings fan, and again, Mr. Ilitch, everything he did for that team was great. His ownership was so needed by the Detroit Red Wings when he took over, and it invigorated that market and that team, and they got a building too. So how much does that make a difference to your fandom? Either positively, or if you're in a market where an owner might have a bad rep or might not be considered all that great, does that influence your fandom as well? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.